When the lightning struck me, it was like being hit over the head with a heavy metal object. Every muscle in my body tensed up under this powerful surge of electricity. And in that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. I'm Dr. Meg Hayworth. I'm the founder of Evolving Intuition, Building Self-Trust for Life online coaching program and certification program. I'm a transpersonal psychologist and celebrity nutritional chef. And I was struck by lightning on Venice Beach, California on July 27th, 2014. And this year is the 7-year anniversary of this lightning strike. It's my most asked questions, or I should say one of my most asked questions. And so in this video, I will tell you the story of what it was like, the injuries that I sustained, the psychic and intuitive experiences that I had, and how my life has been and will never be the same again. So I went for a walk on Venice Beach with one of my very best friends, and it was a stunning day that day. The water was calm, and there were dolphins that were swimming near the shoreline, and there was a storm that was way out at sea on the horizon and dark clouds above us. And in Los Angeles, that usually means nothing since we tend to get no rain at all during the summer season. So we were sitting on the beach in the wet sand near the waterline, and I was turned towards my friend, turned toward the right, and we were just talking, and suddenly I saw this giant flash out of the corner of my left eye about 20 feet away where the bolt struck in the water line. And then I saw this plate of white light on top of my friend's head and all these jagged bolts all around us. It was like being inside of one of those static electricity globes, you know, the one where you put your hand on it and the energy just arcs towards you. It was surreal, and it happened so fast. We grabbed the top of our heads, and my friend said, "Did we just get struck by lightning?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw it." And so after that, we realized that we had just cheated death, and we both stood up. I still can't talk about this without crying. We both stood up, and we held each other in the sand and just wept for what we had been through and for what was to come. That sound that we heard at the time it happened was like the zzzt sound, and immediately after there was this huge crashing sonic boom of thunder. I didn't hear it, my friend heard it, and I saw the lightning. I had friends in Los Feliz, 15, 20 miles away who saw the lightning bolt strike that day. And of course it's not just one bolt, it's several of them, like fingers of lightning that struck through that area. And about 13 of us went to the hospital that day, or claimed to be struck that day, even though anybody who was on the beach would have felt the electricity, the electrocution basically of that lightning bolt, because I learned that lightning can travel in loamy sands for up to an entire mile. It knocked out the power to the entire Marina del Rey Peninsula. Afterwards, we were both in such shock, and I had this tremendous pain on the right side of my head. It just hurt so much, and we were just very disoriented. Yet we were aware of what was going on. And so, as I said, we'd already stood up, and we looked towards the ocean, and there was this woman who was pulling this large man out of the ocean. This man was lifeless. He had on a wetsuit, like he'd been out there surfing, and she's pulling him out of the ocean. And instinctually, we just began running down the beach looking for the lifeguard, and we're just screaming for help. And then all of a sudden there was this swarm of emergency lifeguard vehicles that filled the beach, and we looked around. They were coming from all directions. And then we knelt down in the sand across from where this man was being given CPR, and we just started to pray and just send love into this man who we hoped would make it. It turned out later that he did. So at the time, though, I looked up at the clouds, and they were really dark. And so I said to my friend, we better get off of the beach. We can pray for this man from anywhere, but those clouds could just start discharging lightning at any moment. So we walked towards this parking lot. And when we got to the parking lot, my friend realized that she'd left her shoes on the beach. And so she insisted on going back. And I kept telling her, don't. But she went ahead and did it. And while I waited, there were all these emergency vehicles in the parking lot. And so I approached a paramedic and I told him that my friend and I had just been struck. And I said I had this tremendous head pain, but we could walk and we could talk. And did we really need to get checked out? The look on this man's face, I will never forget. It was like I had two heads. He said, "You were just struck by lightning. Of course you have to get checked out." He said if it hit your heart could stop at any moment over the next few days. So we need to make sure that your heart is okay. So then he gave us oxygen, and then he loaded us both into the ambulance and took us to the emergency room at Marina Del Rey Hospital, where we would remain for the next 6 or 7 hours under observation. And I had mentioned that the power had gone out, and there was no power in the hospital. They were on generator at the time, and I thought this was kind of a funny thing. At the time, it was like, what? But the doctor brought the chart for me to look at, and it was a handwritten chart because they didn't have their computers and printers up and going. So I looked at the diagnosis on the chart, and it said anxiety. And I said, my diagnosis is not anxiety. I don't want this to go down in my record that I had anxiety as a problem here. I said I was electrocuted by a lightning bolt. And so then he changed the code. I just thought that was an interesting thing that happened there. But I knew that as I laid in that hospital bed alone in the ER, I knew that something big, obviously I'd just been struck by lightning, that's the obvious part, but I knew something really big was coming in my life. I saw it immediately as a turning point for me. I saw it as almost like an initiation into whatever the thing that I was being asked to step into would be. And that's kind of how I look at my life in general anyway. And I would encourage you to look at your life in a similar way too. There's a lot of magic and synchronicity to life, and I don't believe that there are any accidents. And in this case, I knew that it wasn't true. It wasn't a pure accident. It was something that was there for me, and what was I going to do with it? That night, I couldn't sleep. And each time I would start to fall asleep, I would experience these massive twitches, like my whole body would twitch and it would wake me up. And this happened for days and days as I was falling asleep. And there was even one point where I believe I had 2 seizures, and because I had this sort of weird awareness that I was flailing about in the bed, but I don't really, I wasn't really there for it. It's kind of hard to explain. So I couldn't really say, to the doctor, like, hey, I had seizures, but I was pretty sure that I did. And so the twitching was something that went on through the day and the night, but especially when I was going to go on my way down to sleep. So the whole thing was absolutely surreal. So the first morning after I got up to see the world, everything had changed. Everything looked different. Colors were brighter and objects were sharper looking. It was almost like the outline around objects were sharper. And it appeared I was almost like in a new dimension. It was really interesting. And so my senses were all radically heightened. I could feel everything. And like when a helicopter would fly overhead, it felt like it was flying through me. Or when the sprinklers went on outside, it was like they were going on inside of me. When I would drive anywhere, it felt like the car that was coming towards me was literally slicing through my car. It was the most intense thing. And then one night, while out at a restaurant with a friend of mine, a server walked past me, and I ducked this way to get away from the server because it felt like she was right up against me. But she was like 4 feet away from me when I looked. But perhaps the most profound thing that occurred was an intuitive and metaphysical kind of experience that I had afterwards. I went through a life review. So I started thinking about, or was really kind of almost given pictures and images of different people in my life, people I felt like I needed to clean some things up with. So I started calling people and apologizing when I felt like I needed to, talking to people I hadn't talked to in many years just to kind of catch up, that I felt really led to do that with. And what was so interesting was that every single person I knew and spoke to for the very first time after the lightning, it was like I was speaking to them for the very first time ever. I was meeting them all over again, all anew. Everyone, friends, families, colleagues, acquaintances. And what was really fascinating is that on top of that, I would get a sudden psychic realization about the person I was talking to. I would instantly know why they were the way that they are. And like I could see, why are they so moody, or why were they easily defensive, or why were they guarded? I could just see it all instantly. I would just know it. And as soon as I saw why they are the way they are, I would understand them in a way I never had before. And on the back end of this overwhelming sense of compassion would just wash over me. And along with the compassion that I would feel was this overarching sense that it was all okay. Whatever they'd been through was okay. Whoever they are as a result of it's okay. So there was this deep acceptance and knowing and loving feeling that I had towards them. So know that for yourself. When you access compassion, it just may help you let go and forgive and release and accept and move on by accepting yourself and others more deeply. Now, if you're liking what I'm talking about so far, if you would take just a moment and go ahead and like this video, because that just pushes it up in the YouTube universe so that more people can see it, so I can get my message out to more people and help more people with my message. Because like I said, I don't think it was any accident at all that I was struck by lightning. Also, please subscribe and ring the bell for notifications for future videos. A few days after the hospital stay, I was directed to go to my primary care physician to assess the damages. Now, she used to be a physical therapist, and she knew so much about electrocution because she'd actually worked with patients with that before. So she tested the muscles in my legs, and they were so weak that I couldn't hold them up. Like when she would press down on them, I couldn't press against them. I was so weak. And so she said that I presented like a patient who had been bedridden for a long period of time. And I thought that that metaphor was really fascinating. She said, I don't want you walking for long periods. I don't want you lifting, and I don't want you standing for any long periods of time, no more than 5 minutes or so. And she had basically just described my job. I was a very successful private chef to celebrities in Hollywood. And so she put me on unpaid disability to rehabilitate. And she said it would be at least a month or two of rest to help the brain reestablish communication with my legs. And then she also suggested that as I got a little stronger, to lift weights, do some weight-bearing exercises, and to walk every day a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, because I could only take very short walks. I could only go about a half a block at the beginning, and within about 6 or 8 months, I was climbing Runyon Canyon, which, if you know Los Angeles at all, it is a pretty steep hill in the Hollywood Hills. So there I was on unpaid disability. I was all set to take on a big new chef client that week, and he happened to be a top entertainment attorney in Hollywood. And so I called him to tell him, calling in sick with a lightning bolt, like, who does that? Apparently I do. So I had to call him and tell him I can't work for you, but perhaps maybe in a month. And he said, who do you sue for something like that? God? I just thought, he was trying to make light of the lightning strike. And boy, did all of those puns start coming in. I'm so shocked, and all of that from friends and family. And, if you're going to survive something like that, you might as well have fun with it, right? So there I was. I was in pain. I was unable to sleep. Literally, I would maybe sleep an hour or two a night, and my sleep was, for a very long time, very difficult for me. I was unable to walk more than a half a block. and having a horrible time focusing on anything. It looked like a bomb had blown up in my apartment because nothing was finished. I had maybe 20 tabs open on my computer because I couldn't focus long enough to complete anything. And so I started calling it LADD. So I had lightning attention deficit disorder, and that went on for quite a long time. But because I'm in holistic medicine and I know a lot about food and food to nourish the body, I use that time to create another diet to help people with nervous system and brain injuries. So that's another thing that I got to create during this time frame. So I sat in what I refer to as the ultimate time out from the universe. In this time of reflection, in that forced life evaluation, I asked myself this one question. And I want you to ask yourself the same question, because we've all just been through this collective global trauma called COVID-19 in the last year. This one question is, am I living the highest service to humanity that I can? And immediately the answer was no. I mean, I loved being a chef to celebrities. I loved that I got to do diets to heal people for specific conditions. I loved the creative aspect of working as a chef and meeting all these amazing world-class people who had gotten to the top of their fields. But I still had this doctorate in transpersonal psychology that was sort of set aside, except I'd always had clients all the way through my chef work. The clients still were coming, but little by little. So I had been thinking for a long time as I would chop onions in Michael Weatherly's kitchen, I would think to myself that I wanted to create something to help people to get well, some sort of a program to put all of it together, everything I knew about food and nutrition and about holistic medicine and the energy system and the mind-body connection and intuition and all of that. So I figured, hey, here's the time. I'm being given the time to do this thing. So I took a risk and I hired a business and branding coach, and I set about creating Get Well Now, Healing Yourself with Food and the Power of the Mind, which led to my best-selling book of the same title. I also started my podcast series, Get Well Soon, to interview top world experts in health and wellness today. Everything I've done since that day that I answered that one question about my life service has been another step in the direction of helping others holistically to heal their lives. It was about a year after the lightning strike occurred that the media started calling. At first, I had an interview with the Los Angeles Times about the Lightning Strike Survivors International group that I had researched and found right after I had been struck, to try to understand, what do people go through when they've been struck by lightning. I did a lot of research trying to understand what to look for, what to know about, what to expect, and all of that. And I learned a lot. And a big thing that I learned is that every single person who gets struck is struck differently. Everybody has an experience that's very unique to them. So I was in the Los Angeles Times, and it was about the lightning strike survivors. And it was from that I got a call from NBC Nightly News, who wanted me to be on a segment about the dangers of lightning as well.
Last year, a summer day at Venice Beach turned to chaos.
It felt like being hit over the head with a heavy metal object.
Meg Haworth was one of over a dozen people struck by lightning on the beach. She was lucky, but the lightning killed a 20-year-old who was swimming nearby.
Lightning, it's incredibly dangerous. It's nothing to mess around with, and worse than that, you can die. Now, my lightning injuries have taken a very long time to heal, and some of them are permanent, like the damage that was done to the disc in my lower back that I seek chiropractic care for, and it helps, even though I had a surgeon tell me that he thought I should have surgery on my disc. The other thing that I do for it is I walk, and I also do just some light Pilates and some stretching. And those are the things that seem to help my back to stay in working order. I still have issues with focus and attention, but they're not nearly as bad as they were. They are exponentially better. That's mainly through the use of plant-based fats like coconut oil, high doses of high-quality fish oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, bone broth, and tons of organic vegetables and a little bit less of the organic meats. But my diet has been instrumental in the healing that I have done on my body and on my brain. Incidentally, 3 areas of my brain were damaged. The brain stem. So I had some balance issues. In fact, at first it was like I was walking like a drunken sailor. I couldn't walk a straight line. I'm still not very good at it. And I discovered at one point I went ice skating maybe 3 or 4 years later, and I can't lift my right leg when I ice skate. So I thought that was interesting too. It's like I keep discovering all these things about myself. I also have issues with my hands. I can't deal with cold or extreme hot. Like getting into a hot tub takes me quite a while. I have to really ease myself in. After I'm in, I'm okay, but I'm actually heat sensitive. And then my hands, with anything cold, they'll really be in a lot of nerve pain. So a lot of interesting things have happened, but those are small to me compared to what could have happened. So my intuitive abilities continue to strengthen, and I'm now teaching others to develop their intuition in my online course and lifetime access coaching and certification program, Evolving Intuition, Building Self-Trust for Life. And in my private practice, I continue to work with high-functioning women abuse survivors with chronic illness and persistent symptoms to help them heal the mind-body connection using my whole person integration technique, which is what people get certified in my Evolving Intuition program. Whole person integration technique is a core belief and emotional release process that helps you get to how the body holds beliefs, thoughts, and feelings that developed at the time that you went through a difficult experience or a series of difficult experiences, so that we can release them only to watch your body heal. And then I help you with food to help you support the body to heal itself as you're going through your emotional work. I've had people ask me on interviews, I've been interviewed probably hundreds of times at this point about talking about the lightning story. And people will always ask me, do you wish that had never happened? Questions like that. And I say, no. The lightning strike was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And this is a really fantastic thing to adopt in your own life. I've had over a dozen illnesses that I've healed: fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, migraine headaches, severe depression. The list goes on and on. Just about every single system of my body had been affected by a history of abuse, also being highly empathic, and the overload of empathy, of pulling in other people's emotional weight. That also caused a huge issue in my body. And so these are all the things that I help people heal in their own lives, along with food and teaching them how to be able to create a lifestyle, because I don't like to talk about diet. I think it's creating a food lifestyle that you can adopt and eat for the rest of your life, that you really, really love, that makes you feel like I didn't really give up anything, and because you can still have all these wonderful things. I love to make chocolate everything, so that's part of what I teach people how to do as well. At the core of everything that I do are my intuitive abilities, and your intuitive abilities are the most powerful thing that you have. And most of us are so disconnected from that inner voice, from that inner self. And that's the inner self that carries your mission, your purpose, your qualities, the things that you came here to do to help yourself and others. And you may think that's a job, and it's not always a job. Your career may be based around your purpose. It may not be. But discovering and understanding what your purpose is and bringing out those skills, talents, abilities, and gifts are one of the most powerful things that you could possibly do. And that's what I help people do in the work that I do. I work with people one-on-one all over the world. And of course, my online course, Evolving Intuition, Building Self-Trust for Life. If you are interested in anything that I said today, I would love to talk to you. You can talk to me for free. The links are below in the comments and also in the description. So please go ahead and click through, look at my website and see if there's anything in there that might help you. I'm here to help. You can also direct message me on Instagram at Dr. Meg Hayworth. There's all kinds of ways to get in touch with me. Book a free call to talk to me about my online course and group coaching and certification program, Evolving Intuition, Building Self-Trust for Life, or maybe you want to work with me directly one-on-one, or maybe you want to just work with some of the food programs that I have on my website, 21 Days to Healthy Eating, or What Celebrities Eat. I would love to help you with the many offerings that I have for your holistic wellness. And I want to leave you with this one thing. You have so much power. More power than you can possibly understand. And one of the most important things that you will ever do in your whole life is to take your healing into your own hands. Whatever it is that you need to heal from, when you take your healing into your own hands and you learn to listen to your own internal guidance system and you develop that part of the self, the whole world opens up for you in ways you never could have imagined before. Thank you so much for listening to this, and I would love to talk to you. I hope this information will help you get well now.